with all due respect.
Well, with all due respect, episode 24. And this is a good one for me. This is one I've wanted to do. I think since we've done our podcast, we've got 24 episodes. Since episode 1, I was like, I got to get hold of Sam.
Oh,
we got to have a conversation with Sam. Guys, Samantha Hughes is on the UFC roster. She's a UFC fighter. I've known her since high school. Grace said I need to explain how I know her.
Yes.
She was a cross-country runner, pole vaulter, right? Went to run in Division 1 track at Walford. Was it Walford?
Yep. In South Carolina.
In South Carolina. She was a client of Athletes Arena forever. I'm going to start by saying, and I think you probably heard this 1,000 times, I imagine it's more anxious to watch you fight than it is to fight.
Yeah,
that's true.
I feel like this when I watch MMA fights. I'm like this the whole time. I'm so tense.
I am, and I'm sure. I mean, you got a mama, you got friends, you got people that watch you fight, and I'm sure everybody said, "Oh, like I'm exhausted at the end of it." I have a quick story. I remember sitting at an Applebee's on a Saturday night. Was your opening fight maybe, or one of your? I can't remember what it was. And I had my ESPN app up at the Applebee's on the salt and pepper shaker, watching you fight, trying to push away the person trying to take my order because I'm watching you fight, and I'm just like, my heart rate's like 150. Like, I think my heart rate was higher than your heart rate in the middle of your fight, right? That's how invested you get in, right? But
yeah,
Sam, thank you for coming on. I got so many questions. Tell us a little bit about your story, what got you into fighting, where you were, what you did, where you're at, where you're going. Introduce people who don't know. Someone's going to be watching this and be like, I've never seen a conversation with a girl that fights in the UFC that likes to get punched in the face, right? Talk to us about that journey from, like, did you even watch UFC as a kid? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, give us that journey to now.
Okay, perfect. Well, first off, thank you both for having me on. I'm excited to be here. Man, I haven't talked to Josh in forever. Sparingly, every so often, but not to get to talk to you. So it's good. So I ran cross country and track in college, and then right afterwards, I got my undergraduate degree in accounting and finance, and then went to South Carolina to get my master's in sports management. So my whole goal from being, in high school was I wanted to be a D1 head coach. That's like all I aspired to be. And then I got into it, and then I started traveling, started recruiting with the team and stuff like that. Hated it. I was like, oh, this is awful. This is terrible. So let me fall back on, accounting and finance. Let me get an accounting job and just go from there. And so I moved out to Washington State and got a really good job. Was in Seattle, which was weird, but it was cool. It was cool. And then so the guy that I rented this house from, he was a Michigan State fan. He had a bunch of friends that were Michigan State alumni. And so we would always go out on Saturdays and watch football and just hang out and drink beers and stuff. And then one of his buddies asked me, hey, do you work out? You look athletic? What do you do? And I was like, well, I just go to like an LA Fitness and run and lift and do the whole, same thing. And he was like, well, do you want to try MMA or kickboxing? And I was like, yeah, that actually sounds kind of fun. Let me try that. Let me give it a go. And then so I tried my first class, and man, I was hooked. Like, I remember taking my hands out of my gloves, and this was 2015. So I remember taking my hands out of my gloves, and they were like shaking because I was so fatigued, and I loved it. I was like, this is the coolest stuff ever. How can I do this all the time? So I remember still working my 9-to-5 job. I would wake up early in the morning, and I think they had like a jiu-jitsu class at 6 a.m. I would get ready for work and then go to work all day and then go directly to the gym right after. And then they had kickboxing, more jujitsu at night. And so I would just basically do that, and fell in love with it. And then after about 9 months of training, the coach that was there, he asked me, "Hey, Sam, do you want to like fight or you just want to be a rec, like a rec student and just, be in shape?" And I was
Wait,
like,
how
"Well,
long? How long were you there before they asked you that?
9 months,
Oh,
9 months.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, "Well, I ain't doing this for nothing. Like, I've never been in a fight before. Like, this is little me who like ran cross country and like made straight A's and shit. Like, I was like a good girl." And then I was like, "Yeah, let me see if I actually like getting punched in the face. I want to beat somebody up. That's cool, especially if they're like down to do it." And then I remember they matched me up with this girl. She was a wrestler from Eastern Washington. And so I was like, "Oh man, she's going to be like really, really good." And I remember she shot on me. I like defended it, took her back, choked her out. And I was like, "This is amazing. This is
Like
so
a high.
cool." Yeah. It was
Yeah.
like, yes, the best high ever. And, and then so I just kept training, kept fighting. I think I had like 11 or 12 kickboxing fights and then was simultaneously doing MMA intermixed in there. But kickboxing was like my first martial art
okay.
that I learned. But yeah, so and it was basically just, so fast paced because I was only working and training. Like that's it. I didn't drink. I didn't, after I, committed to fighting and stuff, I no longer went out on Saturdays and, watch football and stuff like that. I was like, I just need to be in the gym. I need to do this. I need this. And so basically for the next 5 years, I was like so disciplined and so diligent and just basically worked and then worked out and went home and ate.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was pretty much a fast paced track to the UFC. And then it wasn't, I think it was 3 years and then I turned pro. And then the next two, we just racked up, fights in LFA. And that was, yeah. And then I even came out to Texas to fight in XKO. So I traveled a little bit here and there. But yeah, it was very fast paced at the UFC. 5 years, and that was it.
That's
from
wild.
the start of training. It was crazy. It was crazy. I think it was a little too fast, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was good.
At what point were you like, I think I can fight in the UFC? Because to me, it's kind of like being a minor league baseball player and being like, I could play in the majors, right?
Yeah.
The UFC is kind of the majors, basically.
Yep.
At what point did somebody have to tell you that? Like, hey, I think you can fight at the highest level? Or were you like, why am I doing this if I'm not going to try and fight at the highest level?
I remember being an amateur and then starting to get a pretty good record and then running into girls dodging me. And I was like, why can't I get a fight?
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody actually had to tell me, they were like, "Sam, you're pretty good." And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Is that
okay?
like, I can't get a fight?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yes," like,
yeah.
Dumbass.
Really
like,
cool.
Yeah.
Josh,
And,
you were. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And so I remember that happening, and then I remember like looking at other girls that were like Loopy, for example, because she actually was in Vancouver at the time that I was in Seattle. And so I remember we got matched up and I was like, yeah, this chick is tough. I'm excited. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was the first time that I looked at myself and I was like, actually, Sam, you're pretty good because you've got like a lot of backing behind you and people are like really excited for you and Loopy to fight. And then we ended up fighting twice as amateurs. And then after that amateur fight, the second time that we fought, it was at this big casino in Washington. I remember Doug Baldwin and Michael Sherman showed up to the fight and they were like ringside. And I remember looking over and like seeing them and I was like, oh, I guess this is a big deal. Like, this is okay. This is cool.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool. And then so after that, I remember my coach saying that at that fight, there was basically a recruiter or like somebody that knew the matchmakers of the UFC. So they were pretty much scouting like this whole area. And so that was pretty much when I knew that like, hey, this might be a legit run for you. And so yeah, that was pretty neat. And I think that was like 2017. Yeah.
Josh, I felt you were surprised when Sam said it was like it was a 9-month span, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for people that don't like, I like to watch UFC, but I'm not like super invested in the timeline or anything.
Yeah.
What would it look like for a normal athlete? I guess, like, are they somebody that's training like in jujitsu or mixed martial arts from a young age? Is that the average, or is it more of like a fast paced?
I would say, and Sam, you know more. I would say if somebody started stand-up kickboxing and doing MMA in January and took their first fight in September.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, if somebody came up to me and said they're doing that, I'm like, you sure? Like, you understand what you're getting into? Like, like that other person, like, this isn't a controlled environment. Like, they're locking the cage and whoever walks out wins. Right?
Yeah.
I would explain to somebody, like, I would put them in touch with somebody that, like, well, let's make sure they know what they're getting into, right?
Yeah.
But you've competed your whole life. Like, you've been a competitor your whole life, right?
But it's a different competition to go from a team or an individual sport where you're competing in a sense of like trying to win a race or pole vaulting, you said, or scoring a goal. It's totally different when you're getting in a ring with somebody and you're going to fight.
Zero contact to full contact. Two of the most like extremes. So
how do you feel like you had to change your like the mental side of things?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. It's weird because I'm so competitive. I mean, like from every little thing that I do, super competitive, and I'll get pissed off in bowling if I lose. And I'm like, how am I losing in bowling?
I'm a sore loser too.
And then I'll be salty for about 15 minutes afterwards, and they'll be like, okay, it is just a game. It's fine. It's all good. But man, I really had to work hard on the mental side of everything. But surprisingly, I don't know if it's because I'm half Mexican or what, but like I love getting punched in the face. Like it does not faze me. And everybody
listen, I'm half Mexican. I don't want to get punched in the face. Okay. So
but you do jujitsu, like you still get in a fight.
Getting choked out is different, right? Getting choked out and choking somebody out. I will admit, Sam, there is a sweet, loving spot you feel when you choke somebody out.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a feeling of just like it calms me. Right?
Yeah.
Do we need to check on you guys? Are half Mexicans?
Hey, I take it back to like, you see the old they always talk about the old the Mexican style fighters, like the early boxers, and now you're seeing it in the MMA guys. That part of that culture is like my dad grew up Gold Glove boxing and he boxed in Mexico as a kid. And my dad worshiped like those boxers that came through in Mexico culture where you could fight in a phone booth. You didn't back up. You were a warrior. And now you're seeing that with the rise of the Mexican fighters in the UFC. And they even reference that old boxing culture, that the boxing culture in Mexico, you don't back up. You walk forward, right? Well, it's not always smart, right? Like, no, it's
not. It's not.
But you went from cross country running where you're competing against yourself, really. Like you look at your old times when you run, and it's like, even if I finish third, if I beat my old time, it's a win.
That's a win.
Right? Like you're competing against yourself, right? Whether it's pole vault, like, oh, I jumped this, now the next day I jumped an inch higher, but if somebody beats me, it's okay because I got better. It ain't like this in this game. Like it's not
all
like
everybody cares about is your wins or losses. That's it.
It's not like, oh, she improved. No, she lost. Right. And from a mental side, when you go back to that, you have to have a warrior mentality after a loss to get back up the next day and be like, first of all, you have to get cleared to go back to training, right?
You do. Yeah.
Okay.
You're basically on probation for like you have a suspension from the UFC to like not fight again. So if you get really beat up, they could say 6 months, but usually like after my last fight, they gave me 7 days.
Yeah.
So
Whatever.
yeah,
Yeah. Just,
yeah.
it's probably like the attorneys probably wrote that up. That's the attorney.
Yeah.
But what, explain the mental fortitude you have to do. You lose a fight, it sucks. You worked really hard, you dieted, you cut 20 pounds, you give everything in those 8-10 weeks. Is a camp 8 to 10 weeks? You give everything you got. Waking up the next day, explain the mental fortitude you have to stand on to go, I got to get back in the gym.
Yeah.
I got to go.
Yeah. It's rough. And like some fights are more rough than others. And I forget which fighter who said it, but it's absolutely true because, after wins, I've had as many as like 250, 270 text messages that you have to like siphon through, and you're just like, hey, congrats, champ. Good job. All this other stuff. And then after a loss, you get 8.
Yeah, that was I know the fighter. It was after he fought Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto beat the shit out of him. And he made a comment. He goes, after a fight, I had 270 wins congratulating me. After a loss, I had 2 texts, and one was my mom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's absolutely true. And nobody
is it really?
Yeah, it's 1,000% true because I've had it. I've seen it a bunch. And then too, just like social media makes it so much worse because you get text message or not text, but DMs, and I don't even check the hidden ones anymore because it's just like it's
people
gross.
love the shit talk.
Oh my
like
God.
you get in the ring.
Like,
you get in the ring.
Yeah. It's like, kill yourself. You lost me $100. You owe me this. You owe me that. And it's like, I didn't tell you to bet on me. Like, it's like it is disgusting. The messages. So like, you have to be so mentally just like, hey, this is the ultimate goal, and we're gonna have ups and we're gonna have downs, but we got to stay strong and we got to just keep moving. This is like part of the process. And do we make mistakes in that last fight? Yeah. So we got to rewatch the fight this week while we're off, and we are sitting at home and eating whatever we want to eat because that's what it is and that's the game. But we're going to watch our fight and we're going to dissect it, and we're going to go through and we're going to comb it with a fine-tooth comb, and then figure out where our holes are, and then revamp everything. And I've got a great coach, Charles Bird. He actually fought in the UFC as well. He's got about 4 fights in the UFC. He's my striking coach, and he helps out a lot with that. We come up with a really good game plan, and he's always like, all right, Sam, we need to work on this. And it's always footwork with me because it's always footwork. My feet don't want to move where my head goes and vice versa. So but the mental stuff is really tough. And in Washington, and I hardly ever talk about this, but in Washington, the guy that I was under, he was just a absolute like creep, just terrible individual, and found out a bunch of bad stuff after I left that gym. But I feel like being a stronger individual was kind of because of him a little bit, just because I had to just focus on what I could control and what I couldn't control. And then once I got away from him, I was like, okay, this is a better situation. This is a normal situation. This is a healthy situation. So it was bad, but I feel like I grew a lot as a person, and I accepted some things, and then I just grew from it. But
the environment you're in now, you mentioned before you went live there's other fighters there, UFC fighters. Talk about the importance of having that environment where other people have the same goals, right? Talk about how big that's been for you from a mental standpoint, or even from a physical standpoint. Like, how important has it been for you to be around other people that either fight in the UFC, want to fight in the UFC, have the goal of fighting in the UFC, for you and advancing your game?
I will say it's a double-edged sword, and I'll explain myself. So it's great because everybody is such a workhorse, and everybody's trying to outcompete everybody, but also build each other up. We're the first to tag everybody else if it's their fight week and just say, hey, what do you need? What can I do for you? Are you good? and just like the supportive aspect from that.
Mhm.
In the room and training, just all the hard work that goes into it. It's just a different level and a different expectation every single night. But I will say that I won't speak for everybody, but I have a really bad problem of like, well, so and so is doing this, this, and this. I need to do this, this, and this, and this.
Ah, ah.
And so I have a really bad habit of overtraining instead of like,
Mhm.
so my coaches are always like pulling the reins back instead of like, just let Sammy do whatever she wants to do because she's got it. But yes, I do, but I also get injured in camp. I get, staph infections. I get, I'm overtrained because I'm just trying to do too much. And so like
Mm.
as time's gone on, I feel like I've got a better grasp on the actual training that I should be doing and how much I should or shouldn't be doing.
Mhm.
So that's kind of changed. But yeah, the levels of the UFC fighters, I think we've got like 16, maybe 17 fighters in the
Oh, wow.
I
That's a
mean,
lot.
there's a lot. There's a lot. So the expectation and just like the training level and the knowledge that goes in. So if like somebody's doing something and it's a little off, like somebody will come by and be like, "Hey, do it this way," and you might see a better result. And
Mm.
then sure enough, you do. But so there's always like that knowledge passing between us, and even whenever we roll and stuff, like I like rolling with new people just because it's a different look. I'm sure
Yeah.
you like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
gets boring rolling with the same people
yeah.
because you're like,
You learn
I know.
somebody's game, like, I know what they're gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
gonna do.
They always go
Yeah,
deep half, or you're like, oh,
yeah,
I
yeah.
Yeah.
hate I
And
hate deep
and
half.
and not only that, when you roll and train with new people, um, your heart rate and your adrenaline pumps up a little
Mm,
bit,
hmm.
right? My like the group of black belts where I'm at, we've all trained since we were white and blue belts.
Yeah.
My heart rate's like,
Together.
yeah, what my heart rate's been
Yeah.
like, we'll go to roll and I'll just slap dap and I'll just be like, here we go. Like
Yeah.
heart rate 65. When you get a
Yeah.
new guy that visits and he's probably like brown belt or up, you slap dap and you're like, who knows?
Yeah.
I could get glass doubled through the wall, or he could just sit on his butt. You never know, right? So yeah, I like the idea of rolling. I don't know if that's like that with fighting too. I think we just lost you, but we'll get back.
Little pause.
Yeah,
Take a moment here.
take a moment here and
Take a moment here. See if
see
it comes
see if
back.
we get connected. We can always
Fingers crossed.
redo it. And
There we go.
okay,
You froze.
yeah,
There
I
we
got
go.
you. I got you.
Okay,
Yep,
we're
I got
good. We're
yep.
back.
Yeah, we're back. I love
Okay.
it.
Sorry.
I
Sorry.
wanted to ask, do you fight anybody competitively that trains at your gym?
No.
Is that an unwritten rule, kind of?
So it kind of is. So I think the only time that would ever happen is if, you're a champ and then you're number two guy. So it happened with
Okay.
Kamaru Usman and
Mhm.
then Gilbert Burns,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
they
Yeah.
had to go to separate training camps. So I think that's the only time. And the matchmakers know too. They're like, oh, so and so, those two strawweights train together. We're not going to match them up, unless
Okay.
they're super high, like both top five, which
Okay.
rarely happens. But
Yeah.
I've always just wondered I guess again, the mental side of it, if you were to fight a friend or
yeah,
somebody that you know really well, it's like, how do you, I mean, people, I guess, do it from time to time, but how do you manage that?
yeah, it's funny. I think it's like understood, especially at that high level, that hey, one, we have to put on a show, and two, we both
Yeah.
want to win.
Yeah.
And so even on the mats now, like I love Mila to death, I love Macy to death, but like to be honest with you, I'm trying to knock your head off,
Yeah.
and and then it's all good once we step off the mats. We can
Yeah.
be the best of buds in the training or in the locker room, but once we step on the mats, like it's a killer mentality, and we're just trying to grow. So I think that's and I've been in rooms where it wasn't that. And so that's hard as well
Mhm.
because I've gone up to, who I thought was the best girl in the gym. And I'm like, hey, let's like get in some rolls. And she like looked at me and she's like, I don't like rolling with you. Because she wanted to still be the best. She
Yeah.
didn't want be tested. She didn't want to compete. She didn't want to lift each other up. It was always about like, let me keep everybody else down so I can stay right here. And I don't have to work a little bit harder. I just want to stay the same work ethic. And it's just terrible. So I leave those rooms immediately because I'm like, this isn't the environment that I want to be in.
Right.
So yeah, it does get hard, but the room that I'm in right now, I can say that it is very much lifting everybody up and trying to bring out the best in everybody.
That's awesome. And having that like mutual understanding of working together in that aspect, because you still are working as a team. So I think that's really important.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really
Gotta
cool.
feel good to know that when you fight, you got 17 other fighters rooting you on, right? Like there's like
It
you know,
does.
it's not just you stepping into the cage. It's you got a brand that you respect. You got people rooting for you.
Yep.
One questions I have is what do you do? How has you talked about you were an overtrainer, right? And I believe that, right? I said, anytime I've worked with any kind of person in the combat sport, whether it's somebody getting ready for a jiu-jitsu tournament, whether I'm helping them with like their nutrition or their strength conditioning or whatever they're doing, every time they send me what they do, I'm like, holy shit, like you are like you're killing yourself. Like
You're doing too much.
And usually that is, I said, and I have a rule of thumb. I said, you will never train as hard as you trained in your life, knowing the other person wants to act like they want to kill you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That'll motivate. This is not a pickup basketball game. The other person wants to play murder you, like fake murder you, right?
Yeah.
So you will never train harder than you ever have in your life when you know the other. And if you're a competitor, you never want to lose because they prepared harder than you did.
Exactly.
That is the worst. Working with wrestlers, I'm like, listen, you can get beat because someone's technically a better wrestler than you.
Yeah.
But if you gas out, I'm going to be embarrassed for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you train really hard. You kind of overtrain. How has the evolution of your training and nutrition changed from 2015 when you're like, I want to fight, to 2024 where you're like, I'm now a professional athlete? How is that?
It's night and day. I can tell you that. As an amateur, I would still be good. I would still count my macros and everything like that. But now, and especially too, because when I started, I was 24. I'm now 32. It's like, golly, you wake up in the morning, you're like, why does my back hurt?
Yeah.
I just woke up. So, now every 6 months, I'm getting like a full blood panel, and we're looking at like different hormones, and we're checking like literally everything, figuring out what we can do to become a better athlete and just prolong my career. And it's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So it's not just nutrition. I eat super clean. I count my macros. I do all that. I don't drink. But I think it's like the little things now where, my training partner, Macy, she's got a hyperbaric chamber in her house, and she'll, invite me over there. And she's like, dude, if you want to get in 10 hours this week, get in 10 hours. So I'm like, okay, perfect. So it's like adding those other things to my regimen, and doing the cold plunge and doing sauna every, 3 times a week. So it's those little things that are like keeping me healthy on top of my nutrition, on top of like knowing what supplements to take, like vitamin D, all my omegas, and all the Thorne products pretty much I'm taking on top of this new stuff for brain health that they just came out with. I think it's called like Senna, whatever. But anyway, I think it's helped a lot, and it's a full-time job to keep up with my nutrition at this point. So
what's your intake?
Yeah, what's your daily intake?
What's your intake?
So I'm getting like 350 grams of carbs. I usually keep around 120 grams of protein, and then I'm at like 90 grams of fats.
Yeah, that's a big intake.
You're sitting,
but you train for it, obviously.
I train a lot. Yeah.
I mean, 350 grams of carbs for a 130-pound girl. I mean, you're stacking the carbohydrate, right?
Stacking.
So if you're out there, if you're listening to this, and I've worked with a lot of female athletes, And I just did the macros for a female athlete that's 120 pounds. She wants to gain muscle. It's one of
Okay.
my former interns, and I gave her 270 carbs.
Oh,
And her
yeah.
thing back to me goes, "Oh my God, how is that possible?" Y'all,
Yeah.
you
It's
got to get
possible.
creative. It's possible.
Strategic.
You can
Yeah.
do it. I do 400 to 500 carbs a day, and people are,
Yeah.
how are you not fat? Well, because I carry a lot of muscle and you train hard, right?
Yeah.
But it is possible if you're an athlete. You have to feel. I didn't do the numbers on that, but that's 5. That's 2,000. And that's 9. That's
Like 1,200 and 1,300 grams of carbs, 1,400 grams of carbs,
I mean,
1,400.
you're
calories.
high 2,000s calories.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're high two.
Yeah.
Your body weight double calories, or times 20. You have to eat, right? You have
Yeah.
to fuel your body. Now, talk about this. You're going 2,700 calories a day, and you have a fight in 8 weeks, and you got to
Yeah.
be 115, and
Yeah.
you're 135. Like, have you
Yeah.
been up to 135?
Oh, I'm 135 right
Okay.
now.
And you got to fight
Yep.
at 115.
Yep.
And talk about that 8-week process of what it's like to make and step on the scale at 115.
Yeah. It's a lot, and it's like, man, I'm sure you know because of like jujitsu and stuff.
Mhm.
But like that first sip of whatever liquid carb or Pedialyte, whatever you decide to do,
Yeah.
is the best thing in the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
world. It is like honey, like it's
Yeah.
just so good. Anyway, but you have to be so diligent, and I usually start about 8 weeks because I want to cut down like I want to lose a pound a week uh for 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then the last little bit is all water for me.
How light do you get
So
before you
I'm
cut?
usually 22, 23.
And you cut the last 8?
Yeah.
In a week. That's not horrible. I've heard worse.
Well,
Just tough.
yeah, well really like
But the percent of your body weight, it's the percent of body weight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the last little bit, like 122, 120, the last 5 pounds is all water. Because I'm sitting in the sauna, or I'm sitting in the tub, and then I'm going to like right into the emergency blankets and stuff and just sweating all that out. So it's like, it's not that bad. 7 pounds is,
Yeah, so
not
you
that
say that, and then as I was thinking about saying that, it's different cutting 7 pounds of water if you're 200 than cutting 7 pounds of water when you're 122, right?
That's true. That's true.
Like, you're still losing a good, 5% of your body weight, 4% of your body weight to cut and make it. Has it ever been have you ever been like, whew, I'm going to cut it down to like the last ounce?
Yeah. So my amateur days and a couple early pro, I struggled with it so hard, and I felt like I was knocking on death's door. I just like, I didn't know if I could do it anymore, and that's a whole nother mental talk you have to have yourself. I'm gonna be okay. This is all part of the process, and this is just like one step that you have to do, and just suck it up, because then that makes the fight not that bad. You did the hard part. That's what I always say. Like, you did the hard part. Now comes the fun time. So I don't know what it is about me that I'm just like, I have to do this, and this has got to get done. I've got to check this box. I'm not sure where that came from. I don't know if it's cross country. I don't know if it's the discipline of like knowing that, if you didn't run 500 miles that summer, that, you weren't going to perform in the fall. I'm not sure to like check every box. I don't know where that came from, but, like, I know it's not easy for everybody, but it has become easy for me. And maybe it's just the repetition, but I'm not sure. But it's a lot of fun now, and I've got it down to a science where I'm just like, oh, weight cut's going to be easy. And like, even my coach Safe and Charles, they're like, well, we could leave Sam alone the whole fight week, and we know she's going to be on weight. She's never missed weight. She's always fine, and she's always happy the whole week. And it's like, that's what you have to tell yourself. Like, I feel like you just always have to be in a positive mindset, be happy, and then the suck doesn't suck so bad, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
So
I think as a cross country
Yeah.
runner, the more people I've talked to that have been involved in like track or cross country, you have to endure a lot of pain on that last half mile sometimes. Like you want to quit and you have to just
Yeah.
endure through the suck.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I think that
And
had
it'd
to
be
be
so
part of the
easy just
process.
to stop.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think
it's easy to stop.
And it's easy to stop. Like literally all you have to do is just stop moving one foot and then you be there. But yeah, it's a constant battle of just saying, just keep going, just keep moving your feet. You're almost there.
So
Yeah,
you already
I
had
think
that
you're
mental
probably
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You already had
I
the,
think maybe.
because Josh knows, like I ran a marathon a few years ago, and that mental battle of having to keep moving for more than like an hour, hour and a half is such a different like atmosphere that you get into mentally. So you already came into your career now like having that mentality of I can do hard things for a long period of time, because that's how I've always trained. You know,
Mhm.
Yep.
that makes a ton of sense.
I have
Yeah.
kids. I have kids in high school that I work with, and they know I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. They know I've trained, and these kids have come to me. It's funny. They go, Coach, I think I want to get into jiu-jitsu. I think I want to start fighting. I go, okay, that's cool. I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, I'm going to call a buddy of mine, and you're going to go to a kickboxing class. And there's a guy named Brandon who's a professional kickboxer. He's going to kick you in the leg, and then that's going to happen on a Saturday morning. And then Monday at class, I want you to come in and tell me if you still want to do it. Right? Like he's going to kick you in the quad.
Yep.
And throw a straight right, and he's going to miss you on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
After you do that, I want you to come and tell me if you still want to fight people. Because I've trained one time in my life for a fight that didn't happen. I got kicked in the head, I got kicked in the leg, and I went, wow, this sucks. Like, I'm all about jujitsu, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I will pull guard in a heartbeat, right? And I've been kicked in the leg, and I remember one time blocking a punch with my arm and being like, I think I just broke my arm, like or a kick. He kicked me and I blocked it, and I went, they're like, oh, nice block. I'm like, I didn't block that. I said he hit me off.
That hurt.
Yeah, I said I think I broke my like I got to go to work on Monday, dog. Like, what are we doing here, right? And I think people have watched UFC and fighting for so long since it's been popular. They tend to think that the average person can do it. And I've always said this too. I said, you have to be a little bit of a savage. You have to be a little bit off.
A little bit.
I do believe. And I'm not saying you're off.
It's
I'm saying,
okay. I won't take
not
offense.
a bad thing.
I don't, and I'm not saying,
You
and I've
totally
known
have
you,
to be a lot of it.
I've known you since you were 15. You're not like a person that's a threat in public. Like you're not like, we're not going to unleash Sam in Walmart and all of a sudden we're going to have, you know, and all of a sudden we're going to have, that's not your attitude, but you're competitive. You push through a little bit more pain than most people can manage. But I always think it's funny when we try to turn some high-level UFC guys. You know, I text you after your first loss. I don't know if you remember this. And your comment back to me said, Conor McGregor lost his first fight.
Is that what I said?
Yeah. I can look through it. And I'm like, yeah, I think she's made for this. Like to have that attitude to be like, Conor McGregor lost his first fight. I don't care. Like it's part of the journey. But I think it's funny when people try to take some of these fighters who have grown to be savages. And they become super popular. And they become super rewarded. And there's a certain place you got to take your brain to fight people. Like, have you heard of Rory McDonald's story?
No.
So you know Rory McDonald.
But I know Rory McDonald.
So you know, like okay. He fought at TriStar, right?
Yeah.
I think it was a TriStar guy. An early, like even John Danaher was like part of his coaching when he was earlier. He retired and he left, and he said in the cage, he goes, I just don't know if I have what it takes to hurt another man anymore.
Yeah.
And you saw this grief in his face of like, I don't know. And he had one of the most brutal fights of all time when he fought. Oh my God, who did he fight where it completely flattened his face? Oh God, I can't
Oh,
remember
I
who
know
he
who you're talking
fought.
about. I know who you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, and that was one of the first fights I ever watched where I watched it and I went like, I'm not having fun watching this anymore. Like
Yeah.
they're both
Yeah.
they're both taking each other to the brink of death, right?
Yep. Yep.
And he had this look at the interview, and like the crowd booed him. Like
Man.
almost treated him
Fans are
like he's
terrible.
yeah, they almost
Fans
treated
are
him like
terrible.
he was the gladiator and he's not tough anymore. And he goes, I just don't know if I have it in me to hurt another man anymore.
And that's such an honest conversation you have to have with yourself.
Wow,
Like,
really?
yeah, it's such an honest, like the self-talk that you have, that most fighters have. You have to be so honest and so real, because I even remember, and I'm not going to say her name, but like I remember training with this girl. She's retired now, but she her and I got done with a training session, and it was tough, but we walked up to the locker room, and she was just like, Sam, I don't know how many more camps I got in me. I'm getting older, and I'm not having fun anymore. And I was like, you know what? I said, I think you made your decision. And I said, and that's okay. Like,
You
that's
think once
totally
you have
okay.
that
But like,
doubt, once you have that doubt, it's not the same.
it's not the same. It's not the same. And you can't turn that switch on anymore. And I think that's whenever you need to get out, because otherwise you're going to get seriously injured.
You're gonna and this is not JJ Redick, who played obviously the NBA. He said it's not the season that's hard for me, the reason I retired. The season's fun. He goes, I can't keep up with the training anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. But
And
that's
that's
going to say
really-
that applies for every sport. Like every athlete, I think, goes through that, even when you decide to stop playing in high school or college,
Yep.
I think it's
Yep.
the same talk you have with yourself of like, am I enjoying this anymore at all? And it's obviously more serious for you guys because you guys are actually stepping into the ring and fighting each other.
I think as a competitor, it's an honor to be in the room with somebody who can say that to you. Like when she walked away, when she said, I don't know if I have too many training camps in it. Like, that's an honorable thing to say to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I respect like that warrior that just can't fight, like the military guy that just can't do another one, like the old gladiator that just can't go back out there anymore. Like, I respect that, because there's going to become a time, Sam, that you're going to look and be like, how many of these do I got left?
Exactly.
That's tough, man.
And you know what's really sad too is I look at Tony Ferguson now, and I'm like, somebody needs to save him from himself.
He just won't stop. Yeah, I see that.
He just won't stop. He even tweeted the other day, and he was just like, there's no way I'm retiring. I'm too old to retire. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
There's
8th
been
loss in a
people,
row.
there's been people I've watched in the UFC and been like, man, I don't want to watch you go out like that, right? Like, Nick Diaz got pulled to fight BJ Penn back in the day, and it was BJ Penn's downflow.
Yeah.
And they asked Nick Diaz, he's like, how do you feel? And BJ Penn was like his idol.
Yeah.
And Nick Diaz is like, man, I don't want this fight. I was like, I don't want to take this fight. The UFC kind of, I don't really have a choice, but this ain't the fight. I don't want to fight this man. He's like, and that's a guy who loves fighting people he hates.
Yeah.
Right. He hates everybody he fights. Right. I hate you. But he's like, I don't want to fight BJ, man. He's like, it ain't the same. Right.
Yep.
But
and Nick is fighting Vicente Luque.
Yeah.
Which.
Yeah, man. Like, I remember Nick I don't want to watch Nick get beat up and be like,
I don't either.
That's I love that dude, bro. Like, but like,
what are we doing?
When it's all said and done, and you're like, all right, I did my thing, I made my run, this is what I did. Do you think this will all still be part of your life? Like, will you still train kickboxing? Will you still roll?
I'll definitely roll. I'll definitely still roll. I've kind of waffled back and forth and like flirted with the whole idea of opening up my own gym.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Texas, but like the East Coast is like where my heart is. And so like I'm moving back to South Carolina. Once I retire, I'm moving back to South Carolina. And and I don't know if I'll open up my own gym. I kind of want to at this point. Just because I know what women go through in this sport, and like I want to be an advocate, create like a really safe space and like a really good training environment and for women.
Yeah.
And not just specifically, I want to have like tough ass dudes too.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
awesome. But you know, I think it's really hard for women now to find a really good trustworthy gym that they can like, you know, thrive in and like
Yeah.
be super competitive and build like, you know, a really good atmosphere. Because a lot of women that come in that have like me, well, I'm different, but like other women that come in, they're like, I've never had like body contact before. This is kind of awkward and like getting
Yes.
too close. And especially in jujitsu, they're like, this is weird. Like, where do I put my hands? And they're trying to be very gentle and like, you know, and so I think that's important. And for you to not be like a scumbag dude that's like trying to take advantage of a lot of women, because that happens, you know, and it's gross that it happens, but it does. But I think that's super important. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I've definitely flirted with that idea, but I know I'm coming back to South Carolina for sure.
You know, jujitsu is weird for women because it is, there's no you're right here.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
there's no like personal space, right?
Mm-mm.
And people are always amazed that I do jujitsu at first because they're like, I don't like being touched. I don't like people near me. I can work my way through a crowd without getting touched. Unbelievable. I said, yeah, it's not the same. I said, but I always have a conversation with women when they start jujitsu. I'm like, listen, it's going to be weird being pinned down and held down, just as a woman, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be weird at first,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's very hard for women to find good training partners that aren't women in jujitsu.
Yes.
And there's two reasons to that. One, some girls don't want you to go 50%. Like if
Right.
I make a mistake, choke me out, right?
Yeah.
But at the same
I've got
time,
mad training partners, but because I'm like, you took it easy on me.
yeah,
Like, don't do that. Stop doing
yeah.
that. Otherwise, I'm gonna stop training with you.
But there's also the other side of that, right? Where like if you're 200 pounds, like don't mount me and smother me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't sit on my chest and hit me with mother's milk, bro. Like, don't do that to me, right? And not only that, we have a little girl at our gym. She's 17 years old. She's 100 pounds.
Oh wow.
She's a blue belt. She's about to be a purple belt. And she actually doesn't train with us. She comes to our open mats. And some of our training partners will come train with her. And they all get mad at me because I'm like, that's the best blue belt in your gym. You guys just beat her because she's 50, 60 pounds lighter than y'all. I was like, she is in and out of transitions, arm barring, taking the back. She just can't finish chokes because when she goes to choke y'all, you turn into Hulk Hogan. You're like, right? Right?
Yes.
But if she was a 170 and your size, I said, she'd choke all you fools out. And they're like, that's not true. I said, okay. I said, okay, I'm just telling you, that's the best blue belt practitioner you guys got in your gym. You're just all big, strong bullies. And when she tries to choke you, you just turn into the muscle guy, right? And so I think it's great when you see women do jujitsu, and they always have this little hump they get over where they're like I tell them, it's like, it's okay to choke the shit out of me. Like, I'm not going to retaliate. Like, listen, once you get to black belt, you've been choked out. I've been put to sleep 7 times, 8, 9, 10 times, right?
Because you don't have an ego. There's
I
no
don't care.
ego.
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't care. You can choke me and your friends can watch. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I've been put to sleep. I got video of me, bro. My buddies are I got caught in a baseball bat choke like a year and a half ago where I was passing guard. He set up the baseball choke, and my ego goes, this dude ain't gonna baseball bat choke me. I'm gonna take his back.
Yeah.
And we all know, like, that's the first sign, right? I knew the baseball choke was on. I knew it was on. I'm like, this clown ain't gonna. There's another black belt. I was like, this dude ain't gonna black. He bellied down, and the next thing I know, he was shaking my feet.
Yep.
I'm like, what happened? That dude took it off the camera, videotaped it, and posted it to our group.
Oh my god!
And what it was I went to sleep. I had both hooks in, and he had the choke behind me. I had both hooks in. I mean, both hooks were in. I'm like, I'm gonna choke this fool out.
Yep.
And I fell to my back, and I'm trying to pull him back in, and I'm asleep. and I'm trying to
Yep.
grab him and grab his collar, and you see me kicking like I'm trying to pull half guard, and I'm asleep. All of a sudden, I woke up, and I'm like, "What happened?" He's like, "You were asleep, dude. I put you to sleep." And just like in jujitsu, and just like in any martial art, I remember the first thought was, "This dude ain't gonna hit this choke on me."
Yep.
And guess what happened?
Yep.
As soon as you think
Out,
it.
out like a light.
Yep.
I went to an open mat. I was rolling with this dude. He's gonna fight MMA now. He's a blue belt. He was all right, right? And I was a black. I've been a black belt, and I needed a warm up partner. Like we all have that one guy. You're like, I need like a 50-60%, bro, right?
Yeah.
To get moving, right? And he
Yep.
pulls guard. I jump into his guard. He goes to throw up this triangle. I'm not gonna say I gave him the triangle, but I'm like, I'm not gonna fight this thing. He can go for it. I'm just gonna get out of here,
Yeah.
and I'll just pass his guard off this. Like we're fine.
Yeah. I've been there.
And he choked the shit out of me.
Mm.
And I tapped, and he stopped, and he looked at me, and I looked at him. He goes, "Was that for real? Like, did I just catch you?" And I go, "Yes, dude. You tapped me out." I said, "Tell your
Yeah.
boys." I said, "100%." I said, that I didn't let you. That wasn't a black belt being nice. You 100% caught me because you have a good triangle, and I got egotistical, and I thought I'm just gonna jump in there and fight my way out and bypass it and choke you like I've done 1,000 times.
Yep.
He's like, "That was real." I said, "Yeah, that was real." Right. And there's such a learning experience for any kind of human being of like, you got to check your ego at the door. Right?
Always.
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
ever have a sparring partner where you're like, yeah, I don't need to be sharp here. I don't need to be.
Yeah.
Here. How do you catch that in yourself? I'm like, no, this isn't about them. It's about me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I do actually. It's funny. And it's a guy too.
Yeah.
And and I know that I can get away with I know I can get away with a lot with him and like have bad technique, drop my hands because my head's gonna get out of the way and I'm gonna, roll some stuff. And then but my coach, Charles Bird, he caught it and he was like, "You are picking up bad tendencies with this kid and you need to stop." He was like, "You're no longer allowed to train with him anymore." And I was like, "No, I get it. I get it." And then he was like, "I want you to go with," he put me with somebody new. And this guy was sharp, and also he puts me with Macy when I'm doing stuff like that.
Explain to Gray who Macy is.
Oh, so Macy Chason is she's a 135er and 145er in the UFC. She probably walks at 165, maybe 170.
That's a woman.
She's number 4 in the world right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, she's 6 feet tall. She's 6 feet tall. Very good. Very, very good. She
6 feet tall?
is soon to fight for the belt. She's 6 feet tall. Mm-hmm.
What's her last name?
Yeah. Chason, Chaisson.
Okay.
She's from Louisiana.
Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So yeah, she's very good. And I think in the next 6 months here, she's gonna fight for the belt and she's gonna get the belt.
I love it.
But I can't get away with anything with her. Like I have to be so sharp. And it's so funny. Like I remember we were sparring a couple weeks ago and I caught her with a left hook. And then she looks at me and kind of like shakes her head a little bit. And I was like, "Oh shit. Here we go. Oh, no, what did I just get myself into?"
Yeah.
And then it was like kick after kick after kick after kick. She was just trying to chop down the tree. Yeah. And I started laughing afterwards. I was like, "You're a jerk. You are an absolute jerk." And she was like, "Yeah, I know." But she was like, "Taught me. So what do I do?"
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, that's fair. But
still
so
a competitor,
we have
right?
good exchanges. Yes. Yeah, she is. Yeah. And she's funny. She's really funny.
I want to know what your pre-fight like ritual warm-up is. Like what headspace are you in? Like a few days before, right before, when you're walking into the ring? I want to know what that looks like. Because I think it's
Yeah, okay.
badass.
So the whole week is fun. Usually what me and my team try to do, we just try to have like fun the whole week. We'll go, if we're in Vegas, we'll go hiking out in Red Rocks, and just like totally get out in nature and just enjoy everything. We'll try to get away from people, but just like crack jokes the whole time, make it fun, super lighthearted. Because at the end of the week that it's going to get serious. So
Yeah.
let's have fun. We did all the work up until this point. So let's just have fun for this time being, and then it'll get serious Thursday and Friday and Saturday. But then usually the day before, after I, weighed in, I'll rehydrate, refuel, and have that full day just to, get back my weight about like 125. I know I'm going to perform really well whenever I step in the cage at 125. Like that's what it is. And I feel super light, super athletic. But that night, so if we weigh in on Friday, that whole day, I'll be refueling. And then about 8 p.m. that night, I'll do a shakeout. And I'll, get a good sweat going just to see like how my body's kind of reacting to the rehydration and stuff. And then that'll go well. And then I'll sleep and then wake up in the morning and do another shakeout. And then immediately, like the rest of the day, I'm locked in. Like I've got my headphones in, I'm listening to, forget which podcast I listened to. It was called like Mindset Podcast or something like that. But he was just going over like, what is your why, and repeating your why, and kind of locking in, and just like all positive affirmations, like going over the game plan in my head, kind of repeating like, okay, if she does this, I'm going to do this. And then what are you going to do? And keep pressing forward. And, so the whole strategy, the whole game plan is going on in your head. In my ears, I'm just listening to positive stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, in the back, once we're already at the venue, I've got this really cool thing that I do with my coach, that we'll get tennis balls and we'll just do like reactionary drills. So like he'll put them like in front of me, and I have to have my hands behind my back, and I'm just like, catching them. And and then he'll do different cues, like, okay, if you catch it, put your left foot out, and vice versa. And so we'll do like a lot of reactionary stuff to keep my mind sharp. And then randomly, like if I'm just like walking around, shadow box and get ready, he'll like throw a ball at me and be like, Sam, heads up. And then I'll have to, catch it. And so he'll do stuff like that just to keep me real sharp. But yeah, I don't talk much, or I don't really say much. Just kind of locked in. And then once I go, I'm ready to go. So it's a lot of fun. I don't, a lot of people say like they throw up or they'll get super nervous, but I'm more like, I'm excited. I'm like, it's like somebody pulling the reins back on you, and like, no, just let me go. Just let me go. I'm excited to get in the cage. I'm like, please, like, is it my time yet? Please. I'm tired of waiting. So that's usually what Saturday is. And everybody's just trying to be like, hey, you got time. Just kind of calm down, relax. So that's kind of what it looks like.
Does everybody have a different routine? Like of all the fighters, has everybody got their own little thing?
Yes. Everybody's got their own thing, because I've heard that through different people that like fight week for so and so is like hell. It's stressful. They're always in a bad mood. They're snippy. They're angry. They're just rude. And so I just like it to be super lighthearted. But I know some people like to have like a full-on fight in the back before they actually get in the cage. I think Macy said she likes it to be pretty light. But I like to have a full sweat going. Like I have to be sweaty walking into that cage. So it just depends, but everybody is different. Some people don't warm up at all, and they're just like, all right, I'll walk.
Yeah.
So I know. I don't get that at all.
Everybody prepares differently.
Yeah. It is. It's such a show. So it's like we sit there and watch you guys walking into the ring. You get so amped up. You're like, okay.
What's the largest crowd? What fight was the largest crowd?
Miami was pretty big. I think Miami was the biggest crowd that I've had, because I think it was bigger than Mexico City. Mexico City didn't seem that big. But Miami was in the heat center. So that, I think, I don't know, I'd be making up a number, but I think there was like 16 or 20,000 people there.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is so
The first
cool.
time you ever walked out, were you like,
what the hell?
whoa?
Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
okay. So I started the UFC during COVID. So I only fought in the Apex, which is like, I think they have a max of 150 or 200 people.
Yeah.
In
Like fighting
that
at your
arena.
local gym. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, so you can hear everything. You can hear her corner. You definitely can hear my corner. I can pick out, you know, my coach's voices and stuff. But man, I remember getting ready for Miami, and Charles was like, Sam, get ready, because it's a whole nother experience once you walk out and you see all those people and all their phones out and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'm ready. I'm excited. Let's look at it. And then it was, and I remember like walking through the curtain and then seeing everybody, and I got goosebumps. And I was like,
sure.
This is dope. This is so cool. All these people are about to watch me. Like, this is so cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah. When I watched in the Apex, I think the hardest part about watching the Apex is you hear the punches land.
Oh God.
Oh, you hear it and you're like, oh, like for the kicks. The kick, when a kick lands, you hear like whack, and you see the dude like I don't know how dudes sit there and just eat leg kicks, right? And you're watching it in the Apex, and that was different because when you watch the big show in the UFC, you don't hear it and see it, you don't understand. Yep. But when you feel like a body kick land and you see it and you hear it, part of you is like, oh, my God. Like, oh my, and they just wear it and they just keep going, and you're like,
no. Like it didn't even hurt.
Yeah, you're just like, that's adrenaline, and I bet when it's over backstage, you're like, oh my God, like
absolutely,
oh my God, that hurt, right? Hey, I'm so glad we got you on. I feel like what do you got today? What's today? Tell me what's on the wrap today.
Let's see. We got strength conditioning at 10:30, and then I got noon striking, and it's a lot of footwork. It's a lot of hitting the bag and working on different combos and stuff like that. But super high intensity, and then I'll usually stick around and get a couple rolls in after that. But then I'm done. So Wednesdays are my lighter days.
Great. Well, hey, enjoy it. Thank you for coming on. We're gonna keep promoting you, watching you. I'm gonna keep. It's okay. I'll be nervous. It's just part of the deal. Watch you fight.
White knuckling.
Now you got Sam. Now you got Gray all emotionally in. Gray's
I know. I'm gonna be texting.
Yeah. I wish she might be in. And I love the journey. I seeing you work out as a kid in high school, I'm not surprised, to be honest with you. Like it's hard to just that's never gonna go away. Like that competitive need to, like, it's not gonna go away. You're gonna have it, you're gonna take it into every part of your life, and there's nothing wrong with it. So we'll talk again.
All right.
Thanks,
Sounds good. Hey, if I get tickets, or if I get a fight in Tampa, I'll get you guys a couple tickets. And then
great.
My fiance will kiss your feet.
Yeah,
kiss your feet.
I grew up as a little boy. Anytime I did, even when I competed in jiu-jitsu, like my parents would come watch. And my mom's claim to fame is as a little boy when I'd wrestle. My mom's claim to fame is she's been to everything I've ever done, but never watched one round.
Yeah.
My mom, like,
it'd be so hard with your kid.
My mom watches like this.
Yeah.
My mom watches
for
like
sure.
This. Yeah,
for sure.
So hey, I'm excited. I appreciate it, Sam.
That was awesome. Thank you.
With all due respect.